Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight Season 16, Episode 14. Here at this channel we do a therapeutic review where we utilize the internal family systems model to try to get a little curious about what's happening internally for these couples, to learn a little bit about communication, relationships, and potentially learn a little bit about ourselves. If you are returning, welcome back. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. First we have Clint and Gina. And Clint and Gina, they're in a space where there's a lot of hope, right? There's some hope for this couple, and at the same time, like, there's some reality there that this isn't going anywhere, right? So Clint, starting out, he is cooking for Gina, his love language. He's frying some catfish, and then they're talking about how cooking for one person, it can be kind of lonely. And Gina said, yeah, I don't really like to cook for myself. That's why I don't do it, because cooking for one person, you kind of waste a lot of food. And so it's great to just share and commune with somebody and cook and eat together. And so they both were talking about that, and that's definitely right. And at the same time, I don't see any coming towards each other. They're still eating pretty far apart in body language, right? Not close together. There's no appreciation of, like, babe, thank you so much for this food, with like a kiss on the cheek. Like, nothing's coming closer. There's no intimacy that's happening. There's kinship, there's appreciation. Hey, you're a nice person. Hey, you're a nice person. That's where it kind of stops. You can tell, though, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, that there is a part of them that's like kind of wanting things to progress, but they're like waiting on each other. And it's interesting that that's happening, but I'm seeing that, especially when they were meeting with the experts later on in the episode. Gina did state, though, that she really appreciates that Clint has this massive heart. She tells, he cares greatly, and she really appreciates that about him. And Clint was saying, well, hey, I really would like some Gina time too. And she said, well, we can see what we can do about that. And so he smiled so big when she said that. You could tell that he wants to make this work with her. He does. He's in more than he wants to verbalize, and I think that's the issue, that both of them are kind of like, ooh, maybe, potentially, but I'm waiting for you to tell me, or you to make the first move. No, you make the first move, and I don't want to let you know that I'm waiting for that. I'm just going to stay in my room and you stay in your room, right? And so they're meeting with Dr. Pepper later on in the episode, and she said, okay, now we're at final countdown moment, and so tell me what's happening. You guys aren't moving closer to each other. What's going on? She said, well, I mean, we're still friend zoned here. That's what's happened. And Gina does have this part of her, we saw it last episode, where she speaks for Clint. We friend zoned. You friend zoned. I don't see where Clint made the remark about her appearance. She made the remark about his appearance. And that's as far as I saw in regards to where they are, right, in this relationship. And he's still open and willing. And so, Gina, no, you have friend zoned, right? So she feels like there's nothing that can happen, right? This is where we are, and this is where we'll be. And so Dr. Pepper says, well, in deep friendship, there can be love. Don't you have friends that you really love? For me, this feels like comparing apples to oranges a little bit. Yes, you have friends that you truly love and appreciate, but it's a different type of love. It's just a different type of love. It's not a intimate, romantic love, right? You have friendship that's even developed over time. This is a period of 8 weeks. It's to have that expectation or to compare that a friendship love where you've known the person and you've gone through things with each other for a long period of time versus knowing somebody and being friendly with someone for 8 weeks. It's not a fair comparison. But they both say, yeah, you should think, well, this can grow, and this can translate to the love that romantic love that you need for this relationship. And Dr. Pepper said, okay, so what are some things that you guys can do to move closer to each other to start to feel more deeply? And Gina said, words of affirmation is something that she really appreciates. She said the thing that makes her feel even more emotional when she is hearing that someone is proud of her, right? Someone's proud of her, that makes her really open up and start to become emotional. And Clint said that random acts, right? Spontaneous acts of planned, intentional, thoughtful things really go a long way for him. He said an example like setting up the house very nice and doing something in that degree. And so Dr. Pepper said, oh, like for example, if Gina were to cook something for you and Gina said, well, Clint does the cooking. I hear you, Gina. Maybe, because she is working in the salon and Clint is the person who's cooking and he likes to cook. So she's like, hey, he does the cooking. And at the same time, I am sure that Clint would be appreciative and really be open to coming home and you are cooking one of his favorite meals that he told you about or something to that degree. He would be open to that. He would appreciate it and feel really, really taken aback by that, and so Gina, I don't know if this is an example of what she did last week with Dr. Pia of like, I don't want to do this. I don't know. No, I don't want to talk about it. Right. And she wasn't wanting to talk about physical intimacy. She's not putting so much of a pushback in this situation. And she has cooked for Clint. It was for their home warming. So I don't know if that's equal, like Clint saying he wants something like just for him, right? And so Dr. Pepper then recommends that they watch romantic movies together, which I could see that. But her recommendations are not ones that I would deem as romantic, and Clint neither is Top Gun, right? So maybe they can, because they are the ones who know what mood they need to be in order to get closer to each other and cling to each other. Maybe they need to choose the movies for them, and Driving Miss Daisy is not one of those movies. Okay. And so Dr. Pepper asked them to hold hands, and they did. And even like you saw Gina was even kind of pushing, like, hey, what are you doing? We're holding hands. Let's interlock fingers. Like, that was something that was important to her, right? And so then she said, okay, share something with each other that you haven't told them and that you feel like you want to share with each other. And Gina talks about she appreciates Clint and how he shows up for her, how he's taking care of her with the food, and she really appreciates that because of her work schedule, and she really appreciates him more than she knows. And he's like, oh, likewise, like, you're a great person, your entrepreneurial spirit, and how you have moved through adversities, and you're so brave, and and so you saw a little shift in Gina's eyes. There was a part of her that was like, oh, that's it. That's what that felt for me. That's what that body language was communicating to me, that there was a part of her that was hoping to hear that I'm proud of you, that she alluded to so much earlier. Like, oh, this was the opportunity in your entrepreneurial spirit and how you have pushed through adversity to own your salon. Like, I'm so proud of you, right? That, I feel like, is what Gina was looking for and hoping for in that moment. And also throughout their meeting with Dr. Pepper, Clint was like giving eyes to Dr. Pepper and or to Gina when she would kind of speak for him and put up a wall, unknowingly or knowingly. Like Clint was like, yeah, see, like she's not moving towards me, and they're doing this like chicken thing where like who's gonna take the first step forward, and then we're gonna be a decision day and it's too late. Like that's really what I figured. But shout out to Clint's dance moves at the group date. I love to see when people let loose and be themselves. And Clint is all about being his true self, having fun, and enjoying life. So I really do appreciate that he did not care about how he was moving. He just wanted to move and have fun. Dr. Pepper did say that, hey, there's a lot of marriages that will want this. What you guys are describing and how you appreciate each other, there's a lot of marriages that will want this. And I'm sure that you would miss this after decision day. And they both agreed that they would miss each other. And just because they would miss each other doesn't mean that they want to be married to each other. Again, that's not a fair comparison. And at the same time, I really feel like there is a part of Clint, there is a part of Gina that kind of wants this to work, but it's waiting for the other person. And they both have a tendency to be non-confrontational and kind of avoid the issue. So I would have I really try to pay a lot attention to body language because we have different parts of us, which we've talked about, and they speak. They speak whether we realize it or not. And so I saw a lot of part speaking non-verbally in that session. I know, again, Dr. Pepper, I don't think she's a sociologist. She's not a therapist. And so, that she's limited in that way. And then I feel like some of her recommendations aren't really appropriate in regards to like watching movies, things like that. I think that's great. I think there needs to be just more dating along the process. And we only saw the rodeo show. I don't know how many dates they've been on, if they've had time to date, but dating just as a minimum for all of the couples, especially Married at First Sight, that's something that's very, very important for them to spend time with each other, have fun with each other. That's what's needed. But, it's 10 days until decision day. So this is where we are. Next, we have Nicole and Chris. And so Chris is checking in with Nicole to say, hey, I just want to check in to see if there's anything that you need or anything that I need to do different. I just want to tap in, do a temperature check, and see, how things are going. And so Nicole said, well, okay, so when I say that I need space, like I don't need space, and I really want you to come and talk to me and check in on me. And Chris was like, but if you say you need space, then that's kind of confusing, right? So we have this part of him we know that wants to honor her request and wants to respect her, wants to give her what she needs. And so that part is not understanding these mixed messages and mixed signals that Nicole is sharing. Now, she did say, like, no, but if I say I want space, right? If I say I want space, then give me space. But if I'm saying I have time and I need to process some things, check in on me and maybe come either ask me to join you or you come and join me. And Chris is like, I don't know. Like this is still, confusing. He is still like, how do I navigate this? Because it's still kind of foggy, right? And so his concern is he doesn't want to do something that's going to upset her. Like if he comes in when she needs some space and he comes in to check in on her and she's like, I said I need space. I feel like that is when Chris will start to either get hurt or become upset because he does have this part of him that wants to do right by Nicole. Nicole stated that in the past she's had men or a man that she dated tell her that, when she needed some support, when she was sharing her feelings, and he said, hey, listen, it's not my job to handle your emotional baggage. So you deal with that and then you come deal with me. And so she has a fear that if she communicates her feelings, if she talks about her stuff, that Chris will be less attracted to her and be annoyed with her and not want to stay in this marriage. And Chris said, "Hey, no, I'm not scared to dive in your feelings and be with you. Like, that's not it at all." And she said, "Okay, I logically know that, right? So this is a perfect example of the different parts that we have, right, inside of us, right? So logically, she knows there's an intellectual part that has the knowledge and the lived experience with Chris, right? That knows that he's not going to dismiss her feelings, he's not going to push her feelings aside, he's going to be present for her, okay? And there's a part of her that had that lived experience with this gentleman, or not gentleman, this guy who did not want to be present for Nicole's feelings. And so that part that has that emotional wound, that one is going to be protected by this one who's saying, "Hey, don't talk to Chris. Don't talk to Chris about your feelings, because he's gonna, you know what's gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen if you do. If you go over there and you say you need to talk about your feelings, he's gonna get burdened by your stuff. He's gonna get burdened by your stuff." Now, I feel like there is a balance to all of this, because we saw in the last episode that Nicole is willing. She's willing to be open and to deal with her stuff. Like, she's willing to be a participant and not have Chris be the person that is navigating her old wounds and her protection, right? We are seeing a little bit of that coming out, though, in this episode, where she is delegating some of her management of her wounds to Chris. And Nicole said, "Okay, I just need validation. I need validation. And so if you're not going to give that to me, then there's the door. But if you are still here, like, I would love to have you. If you're still interested, I would love to keep you." Okay. So there's this one, right? We see it's here in this very moment that is maybe giving Chris an out. Okay. Giving Chris an out. And this really, I feel, is the core of her, the part of her that feels unlovable. I've got all this baggage. I have all these protectors, right? She doesn't know this language, but I have all these protectors, parts of me that are they're a lot. They're a lot for me to handle. So I know they're a lot for you to handle. And so I know I'm too much. I know I'm unlovable. It's too much. Other people couldn't handle it, so you're not going to be able to handle it. So here's the door. If you want to leave, but I would like to have you. Like, I would really like for you to stay, right? So that's where these mixed messages are coming from. And it's a bit confusing on Chris's end, but that's what's happening. And it's an internal polarization inside of her, where there's a part of her that's saying, "Chris, please stay," and validate me. And there's another part of her that's saying, "I know you want to leave because I'm too much. I need too much validation." And Nicole, once she gets to the space in her own healing journey that she's able to provide that validation for herself, then Chris won't have to be the only person doing that. And so she needs to also reassure that part of her that feels like Chris is going to not be available for her. Now, Chris isn't going to always be available for her because he's human, right? And so that's why it's so important for her to be able to validate herself and to be able to connect with those parts of her that feel and fear that she is unlovable, that he's going to run away, that he's going to get burdened by her stuff, and to reassure them that she hears them, right? That she hears them, and to get to know these parts, and why they're really showing up in the way that they are. I know people are beginning to be fatigued, right, with Nicole. I understand that. And I understand where Nicole is. She's in this really nice relationship. First, sounds like one of the first in her life, and it is bringing up all of her stuff. And so she is in a space where, like, I'm trying to navigate this. I want to make sure I'm not putting too much on Chris. And at the same time, these parts are speaking. In her head, there's thoughts that are coming up that's saying, you're unlovable. You need to, don't talk to Chris. Don't, okay, he's not going to want to deal with you. Like, he's not, he didn't even, right? He didn't even pick you, right? So, and we hear that coming up later on. But first, we have the group date. And we see that Nicole is inserting herself yet again in multiple people's relationships, in Eris and Jasmine's relationship, and in Shaquille and Kirsten's relationship. And I don't feel like anybody's having a conversation with Nicole about the fact she's inserting herself. She did say at the after party, like, oop, I probably went too far. Like, I probably should not have spoke for Kirsten. And at the same time, there's so much miscommunication. She wants to help. She has this part of her that really wants to help move things along. I feel in those moments that Nicole is really protecting herself in those moments. She doesn't realize that, and I feel also that it's coming from a well-intended place. When I say that she's trying to protect herself in these moments, she is trying to be what she needed in those moments. Advocate for the person who needs the support in the relationship, and to make the relationship work. Like, she didn't have that person. She didn't have that companion. She didn't have that. And who knows what Eris and Jasmine and Shaquille and Kirsten need. But they know, and they need to communicate that to each other. And I understand, too, potentially, that she's like, hey, the experts, they're just now coming. Hey, I see this. Kirsten, you need to say this. Shaquille, you need to say this. Eris, you need to show up more for Jasmine. Jasmine, you need to say how you really feel, right? So I hear her, but Nicole, okay. And so they're meeting with Pastor Cal, and so they're talking about how things are going well, and they're really enjoying each other. And Nicole says, okay, hear me out. I had this part of me that's like, but he didn't even pick you. Like, he didn't pick you, okay? And so Pastor Cal's like, okay, I need you to stop. And this is, again, where not trauma informed, okay? Not trauma informed. I hear him, and then there's this reference to this devil on her shoulder. The intention of these parts of us that show up and that have these negative, I know we use that language because they're saying something that's bad or coming from a space of fear, and so we attach meaning to fear being a negative thing. Well, fear is very helpful. It protects us from things that are scary. And anxiety in our body is an alert system. It's an alert system to tell us that something's not okay, or that we have some past trauma we've experienced, which definitely Nicole has, and this feels very familiar. And so, girl, watch out. Right? That's what her alert system is telling her. Her nervous system is communicating to her that, hey, when we're in a relationship with a guy, things go bad. Okay? And guess what? You're in a relationship with a guy. Okay? And so let me tell you all the reasons why you should not be here. Okay? That's what's happening. And so I will really appreciate in this moment for Pastor Cal to even have a little bit more understanding and understand what's happening internally for Nicole. Because she even says, hey, I logically know that Chris is an amazing guy. I do. But there's this part of me. She said, there's this part of me. And we use this language not understanding that that's very true. And there's another part of her that's saying, but this guy did not pick you. And so Pastor Cal did do a very reassuring thing, I felt, when he said, well, yes, he did. He did. He gave us very much detailed information, and that was you. And look, he said, Chris, do you appreciate Nicole? Do you choose Nicole? He said, yes, I choose Nicole. Like, she is amazing, and I just appreciate who she has been. She shows up for me. I don't question her. I know for a shadow of a doubt she is going to be there for me, and I'm going to be there for her. So that was beautiful, right? For her to hear. She said, okay, I'm going to take that in as much as I can, right? But there's a part of her that is afraid to take that in because of past experiences. And so that is when we need to do some somatic healing or some internal healing with the internal family system, some type of work for Kirsten to work with this part of her, because she said it won't stop. And she said, how can I make it stop? And Pastor Cal's like, you just need to stop, you need to shut it off. He also said that she put this negative one on her shoulder. No, she didn't. She did not. That is internally what happens for us when we experience wounding. When we experience pain, when we experience distress, our brain, our body communicates to us, hey, we're never going to let this happen again. We have proactive protectors that come in to look out for us, and we have reactive protectors that come to look out for us. And she has this proactive protector that's saying, girl, get out. Get out, or make him get out, so that, hey, I can say that, hey, you were right. You were right. You were right about this guy. He's not for you. And Pastor Cal called that self-sabotage. I'll say this. I know that there's that language that's out there. And I even have a video talking about sabotage. I use that as a language because that's what we know, right? That's what we know. That's a language that's known. And so that's why I use that title. And at the same time, that's not what's happening here. Really, that's not. There's risk involved. There's risk involved. And what happens for our protectors is when they're looking out for us, and this one is trying to get Chris out of her life by any means necessary, because, again, when we're in a relationship with a guy, bad things happen. We get hurt. We get hurt in multiple ways. Let's not do this. Let's not do this, because he doesn't even want you in the first place, right? And so that's about safety and protection, and less about sabotage, right? Because what it communicates when we say sabotage is that Nicole is doing this to herself. Not necessarily. It's our nervous system looking out for us. That's what's happening in this situation. And when we're in situations that feel familiar to a past experience, a voice, a sensation in our body, something will happen where it's like, get out, leave. No, this isn't what you want. Because the fear of being hurt again is real, and it's too big of a risk, and it's not usually coming from a rational place. And so that's why it can battle with our intellectual mind and our logical mind when that happens. And the best thing to do is to hear both of them out. Hear both parts out, listen to them, because usually the answer is somewhere in the middle, and they don't usually realize that they're protecting the same wound inside of us internally, right? So I wish Pastor Cal was trauma informed. I wish Dr. Pepper was trauma informed. But that's not what's happening, because in a relationship, especially connection, we have a lot of protection around connection. We just do, because people are flawed, people are limited, and hurt happens. And so there's a lot of protection around connection. There just is. And so, man, I wish they were trauma informed, but they're not. And so this is what they're getting, where Nicole feels like she's doing this to herself, which is not true, which is just not true. And there's a lot of language out there, I know, in my field that says that, but that's just not true. It's not. And so I'm grateful that Chris is open. He is here. He's creating a space for her to be human and not be fatigued with her humanity. He's giving her patience. And so him modeling that is going to also be able to have her have some patience for herself. And she talked about how she just feels like she doesn't want this relationship to be like, we got to take care of Nicole's stuff. We got to take care of Nicole. He said, hey, you showed up for me with my dog. Like, you came in when I was in distress. And so this is your turn. He said, I worked through some of my stuff. And I said, well, you still have some work to do. But I've worked through some of my stuff, and I want to give you the time to work through yours. And that's love. And then Chris, Pastor Cal kind of got the hint. And so he said, so do you love her? And Chris said, yeah, I do. And so they had a moment, right, where they expressed love. It was for the first time, and I really have a lot of hope for this couple. I know people, again, are fatigued with Nicole, and I feel like the reason why that fatigue is happening is because a lot of the misinformation that's out there, that she's doing this to herself, that she's doing this, when no, this is her nervous system looking out for her because of her experiences. This is how trauma shows up in our lives. This is what it looks like, and that's just the reality of it. And we don't also have a lot of patience around the attention that's needed, the attention that we need, and really having enough patience for ourselves through that. We feel like we have parts of us that feel like we should have been through this, have gotten over this, that happened so long ago. Why are you still dealing with this? You haven't healed yet, right? We have all of this rhetoric around that, and it's just not how, in reality, trauma shows up for us in our everyday lives. But saying all that to say, I have a lot of hope for Nicole and Chris. I really do. And I am really looking forward to Nicole, Nicole's journey and seeing where that goes. Also, I think it was really brave of her to do her lingerie shopping with Kirsten and embracing her curves and shopping on national TV, knowing that she has that past wound. Like, that was just a brave thing to do. Next, we have Kirsten and Shaquille. And so Kirsten is working out in the gym. Now, this looks very staged, I have to say. Like, Kirsten, even though she has this part of her that is like very well put together, right? It's like when it comes to the things that are staged, she shows that it's staged. But she's talking to Shaquille's mom, and she's like, yeah, I know you've talked to him, so yeah, how are things going? And Shaquille's mom says, hey, I don't know what's going on between you two now. Okay. It's like, you hear how she's talking in parts. Part of me knows that I don't know what's going on, and a part of me is like, you're not supporting my son in the way that you need to. Okay. I'm talking to him, and that's what I'm getting a sense, so you need to support him better. And I'm like, okay, mom. Like, this, I'm a little concerned about, because they already have this pattern of not communicating directly with each other. They have these communication hiccups with each other. And so what happens is they communicate what they want to say to other people instead of communicating it, and it needs to stay. This needs to stay internally, right? There's some things that you can share with others, but parents and close family members being involved in the relationships, it sounds like his mother doesn't have boundaries in regards to how to support their marriage without inserting herself into their marriage, because she doesn't know what's happening internally in their interactions or in their communication. And so to come in hot how she's doing to Kirsten, that's a lot. She did say that he's really struggling. He's got a lot of stress on him, and he really needs her support. He really does. And she said, yeah, I'm here for him. I want to support him. I want to be there for him. Right? That's what Kirsten wants to communicate to his mom. And at the same time, his mother, you can see on her face, her facial expression, she is upset about her son being distressed and not getting the support that he needs. On the group date with the full cast, they're talking about a really serious subject about past friends who have suffered in silence and because of that unalived themselves. And Shaquille said he was that person. He was that person who was struggling with internal battles, and he was really dealing with it all by himself. All right, so he has the same part, and I'm sure it comes from being in a space where he's in a single parent home, he's by himself, his mother's working a lot. Who else could he turn to in those moments to really be there? And I feel like that's why this part of him is showing up to say, I need support, I need you to be here, I need you to be here, because that's an unmet need. That's an unmet need from his childhood, and it's showing up in this relationship, and it is creating a lot of demands around how Kirsten is supposed to support him, right? And what happens though in that situation is that this isn't fair to Kirsten. Same way Kirsten had those expectations of Shaquille and how he's supposed to show up for her. That's not fair to Shaquille either. So it goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. And so, yes, you can have expectations and communicate them, but there's levels to this, right? And so they all, really rally around Shaquille, give a toast that he's still here and that he chose to still be here. And Nicole said, yeah, and that's why, since I brought this up, and, I want to kind of bring this, back home because it's getting, really, really deep. But, Kirsten needs to hear from you. She needs to know what you need because she wants to be available for you. She really does. I'm speaking for you, Nicole. And so I feel like Kirsten was caught off guard in that moment. That's what I feel happened just by her eyes getting kind of big, and she was like, sure. Like, I didn't know you were going to say that. And so Shaquille having Nicole say that, and then Kirsten respond with, sure. He gets up because he's upset. He's like, that was kind of awkward. Like, you didn't have anything to say. Someone else spoke up for you and you didn't have anything to say after that. And she said, well, I didn't have much time to really say anything. And so then they have this support conversation. Like, you didn't support me. You didn't say that you needed support. I did say I needed support. You said that I made hotel arrangements. You were supposed to be there on Friday. You said you were leaving on Sunday, and then you had to work. And then she's like, hey, I support you. I want you to feel supported. I want you to know that you're supported. I hear Kirsten. I hear what that part is saying, like, hey, I'm trying here, and just because I'm not there doesn't mean I don't support you. And at the same time, we all have ways that support and love look, what that looks like, what that feels like. And they get into that a little bit later with Devon Franklin. But he said, hey, no, I hear you, but no, I need you by my side. It's not a want, it's a need. I need you by my side. And so Kirsten said, okay, all right, we're going to do this. I want to be there for you. I'm going to be there for you. And can I have a hug? Can I have a kiss? So they hug and kiss. Shaquille still feels wounded. You can tell it's still there. That wound is still there. These words aren't. He's had the words, right? His younger self had the words. So his mom saying, I love you. I appreciate you. I care for you, son. He did not have her presence. And it's not her fault. Like, she had to support him and work and take care of him, right? So it's not, completely her fault, but this wound is here, and it's making demands. And so the words, while they're wonderful to hear in real life, this one has the expectation of, this is what I need. I didn't get this need met, and now I need it met by you. And you're the person who's supposed to fulfill this need. It's you. And so then they come back to the table, and they said things are fine, everything's fine. And then they talk about their past conversation too, about intimacy, and how Jasmine spills the tea and says, Kirsten's just waiting. She's just waiting for you to make the next move, and she's ready, right? She's ready. And, Kirsten said, be assertive, be assertive. All right. So we're seeing this part of her that, especially after Shaquille lets the cat out the bag that they have consummated their marriage, it's like, oh, Kirsten and this presentation, this part of her that can present one way, right? It really gives me pause a little bit in regards to there are other ways that she's presenting and not truly being honest about where she is. And also, if that's another reason why Shaquille's feeling like, I need you to show me. I need you to show me in action, and you actually showing up for me instead of saying you support me. I support you. I support you. You know, because on the other hand, Shaquille, this part of him that has this expectation, he's like, the words are great, but when is it going to show up in like an action, right? When is it going to become intentional, right? To really communicate to me that you support me. And so they're meeting with Devon Franklin, and he said, okay, I know about what happened. All right, so Shaquille, do you feel supported by Kirsten? And he's like, well, he said, yes or no? No. Okay. And he said, all right, Kirsten, do you feel like you support Shaquille? And he said, overall. She said, yes. He said, okay, see what's happening here? And their expectation. He said, unspoken expectations are relationship killers. Absolutely. Because what I stated earlier, an expectation is an unmet need from the past. And so there's a part of us, whether we are consciously aware of it or not, that have expectations of the other person in the relationship from things we didn't get. Okay? And so, yes, we can be present for the person we're in a relationship with, and at the same time, same for Chris and Nicole, Shaquille needs to show up for himself as well. This is an area in which he needs to do some healing around and be there for that little one who was lonely in the house, right? Lonely in the house, needing some affection, needing some attention. And it feels like, too, that school was the way that he got the praise, the way he got the attention. So that's why school is so important to him, right? And that's often very true for a lot of children, because school is something that is important, and that's the only way oftentimes that children do get praised. And so he's in this situation too where we find out that his graduation has been delayed, right? And so he's really needing that support from Kirsten, because that's a part of him is like, oh man, like, this is how I get my validation, and now it's not happening, right? So he's really struggling. He really is. I feel like there needs to be some give and take in the situation where, no, Kirsten doesn't have to, what she said she was going to do, be there for every single work event, right? And Devon even called Shaquille out a little bit about that. He's like, I know you went to the first one, but now this one was really important. He said, now wait a second, like, support does look different, and being able to accept to where your spouse is coming from, right? If they're giving effort, right? That's also important. I do feel like this little one that's inside of Shaquille does need some support and attention from him, and an acknowledgement of what that was like for him. Like, sometimes we have a knowledge and a memory of what that was like as an adult, but it's far removed from our real day-to-day experience as a child and what that felt like. Because what happens is we create layers of, like, rationalizing it. Well, mom had to work. I get it. And at the same time, as a kid, it's like, we depending on his age, can understand that mom had to work, but it's like, I want a parent. I want my parent to be here. I'm alone. Where's my dad? Like, all of that is there. And so that little Shaquille needs Shaquille. Really does. And Kirsten, right? And Kirsten too, to be supportive in the way that feels real and true for him. And she's making that commitment. She says, I'll be here. But you hear that language of, oh, okay, I guess I'll do it. And there's a part of her that's, maybe annoyed by this. And because, again, this isn't a realistic expectation for her to be at every single work event. It's just not. It's not a realistic expectation. And so there's going to have to be some compromise here. There's got to be where both of them are working in resolving these unmet needs. Both of them. It can be just Kirsten being tasked to do that, or Shaquille being tasked to meet Kirsten's unmet needs. They both have to be in on on working to be present for those little ones internally for them that have these unmet needs. Devon also talked about the false narratives of like Kirsten saying, "Oh, he's not good. His expectations are too much," or Shaquille saying to himself, like, "Oh, she doesn't care." Again, I know again we use this terminology because this is an old school of thought that these are false narratives. Now, these are parts of them that have beliefs. That have beliefs. If someone doesn't show up, that means they don't care. Now, we know that life is much more gray than that, but that childlike part of Shaquille has that belief, and that belief is valid for them. Is it true? Is it factual? Well, we don't know. And Kirsten has a lot of different sides to her. The jury's still out on if she truly cares and wants to be in this relationship, right? I'm seeing that there is some I'm seeing that there is some care. There is some care for him. I feel like the jury's still out if she's really in this, right? And so they both have some work to do in regards to their younger selves. They just do in the area of her unmet needs and his unmet needs, and not tasking each other to be really the laborer, the only laborer of the one who has to meet their unmet needs. Next, we have Eris and Jasmine. Now, Jasmine's meeting with Devon Franklin, and they are going through her moment that she had with the girls, and he's like, I'm concerned, right? And I'm checking in to see what is, where's the disconnect in how you're sharing with the girls, but not with Eris. And she said, well, he will share really, really heavy stuff, and she feels like she doesn't have the lived experience that he has. And a part of me understands it a little bit, because we do. I think sometimes when we talk about trauma, we talk about it in like these very big T trauma. In a situation where his friend passed away, and so he's talking about that, and for her to bring up, well, I was bullied as a kid, right? It could seem not equal, and at the same time, it's still distressing. Like, she was bullied for 3 years, and then we come to find out that she didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel safe enough to communicate that with her parents. So she was dealing with that all by herself. This is a part of her, similar to Shaquille, right, has dealt with it even with people in the home, handling situations that are painful by herself. And the way she described it, sweeping it under the rug. So she has this part of her that does that. And what happens? After a while, you keep sweeping it under the rug, and it shows up in other ways. We see it, right? The eye roll, the neck roll, her distance, all of that is communicating to him, even though her words aren't communicating to him. And so he talked about, okay, so tell me more about, what do you fear? What do you fear will happen if you do communicate? She's like, well, I'm concerned about the response. Right, and that's a real thing. I know he said, I hear you, but that's not in your control. Yes, and at the same time, that's still a real true thing, especially when we hear more about how they're really interacting with each other. But that's a true thing. His response is a thing. It's a real issue if he has been rejecting her since they've been married, really since they have been together. And so Devon's saying, lean into communicating your needs, because however he responds, that doesn't take away from who you are, which is a fact and can be a reassuring fact for Jasmine. And at the same time, if she does have this part of her, who question her worth and her self-esteem because of the bullying she experienced, that one is there and has those beliefs, right? So it's great, though, that Devon was able to give her that reassurance. Now, Devon met with Eris. And shout out to Eris' shirt, that 3-tone blue shirt. It's very nice. It's a very nice shirt. Okay. And so he's doing a check-in, say, hey, what's going on? With the marriage, and so the attraction's the issue. Tell me how you are, um, even how she's appealing to you. He said her calm demeanor, the fact that she has all these passions in life, like she's not just working a job, she's working in jobs that she has passions in. And he really values that and appreciates that about her. And so Devon was like, well, you hear that attraction and appealing, that's very similar. I hear him, right? I feel that physical attraction is a real thing. It's a real thing. And yes, you can grow to be attracted to someone. And at the same time, if he's not attracted to her, he's not attracted to her. Now, can he be more open and loving and all that? Yes, right? I think that that's there. But the initial attraction, I feel like that's something that does, have to be there for men and women. And all of those in between. So this is, I hear Devon, because they're in a situation, because this is married at first sight, this is where we are. And at the same time, attraction is a real factor. It just is. It just is. He said, do you want to be attracted to her? Which I thought was a great question. Even though it was closed in and it's a yes or no question, it kind of puts him in a situation where he has to answer that, right? And he said, hesitantly, yes, but, right, there's a but that came up. You can't change how you look. I can't make myself taller. And he said, okay, well, do you work? He said, okay, do you feel like you're putting as much work into your work life as you're putting into your marriage? He said, well, with work, I get fired, I lose my home, I lose, all of this. With this situation, I say no, and my life wasn't that bad before, it was fine. So Devon was like, is that what you want? You want your life to be just fine? And he said, well, no, I want a wife, I want companionship, I want this, I want that. And Devon said, you can have all this with your wife. I hear Devon. Everything he's saying, yes. And at the same time, Eris wants that with the wife he's attracted to. I'm not on Eris's side. I'm not on either side. I feel like Jasmine has been through enough in this relationship. She's been through enough. I want the pause button to be hit on this relationship. And I feel like to continue to push him to be attracted to her it's not fair to Jasmine. It's just not. And so Devon asks, what do you need? What do you need to feel more attracted? What do you need to feel more attracted to Jasmine? He said, well, conversations. We try to have deep conversations, but she doesn't really meet me. And he said, well, did you ask follow-up questions? Did you, right? Like, did you just stop? He said, okay, I see. Like, I need to put in, yes. Like, can you put in more effort? You put in more effort to show that you're really wanting this. You really want to be present for her. And also, Eris said being intimate, touching, kissing, all those things would help. And he said, okay. This is on you to initiate this, to create a space for this to happen. And Eris said, yeah, I just don't want to be 5-6 months down the line thinking about, man, I really should have did what Devon said, or Dr. Pia said, or any of the experts. I don't want to be in that space where I have regrets. He said, well, if you don't do this, this is where you'll be. I feel like he will. I feel like the issue is, I don't think he will be able to find someone who is like Jasmine. She's very, very open, sweet, and willing. Almost, she has this part of her that's almost too willing, as we see later on in the episode. But Jasmine does have some really great qualities that are rare. They are rare to find, especially out dating. This is it's a very challenging time with dating, and so I see that piece. And at the same time, attraction is a reality. It just is. On the group date, Eris starts to dance with the dance instructor. Now, he says that she pulled him to dance, yes, and at the same time, he was like freestyle dancing. He really wasn't doing the square dancing that they practice. It'd be different if he was doing the square dancing, like, oh, you want to show me some steps? So, like, his excuse that he gave Jasmine after she stormed out wasn't, it didn't seem very factual in that moment. He was kind of grasping for something to say, like, hey, this is why I did this. As it really wasn't okay. Like, it's not okay for him to to do that, especially in the situation, the climate of his marriage, in which he did state that he also validated her feelings and saying she wasn't wrong to feel what she felt. And she said, yeah, because you didn't need to dance with her, which he agreed. They left. We saw footage of him sleeping on the couch, right? And so they meet with Dr. Pepper, and she's like, okay, like, what's happening? So Jasmine shares what happened last night, and she said, okay, tell me, what's happening? Do we need to call it? Are you here or you're not here? What's going on? And so Aries says that he really sees why the experts paired them, and he sees the qualities Jasmine has, and he wants to put forth the effort to make this work. And so Jasmine is encouraged by this. This is where I feel like we need to be real and honest, right? This is where the agenda of the experts to make the relationship work because they paired them versus what they are really seeing in real life playing out with the couples, it doesn't align, right? To continue to do this, to put Jasmine in this space of, oh yeah, I'm going to try more. Okay, and Air says, yeah, I believe we can still make it, and then he doesn't show anything. We're hearing that she's going days without communication with him if she doesn't text him, and then Dr. Pepper is asking him to put a reminder in his phone. I said, okay, this isn't okay. This isn't, it's just, it again, it goes back to what Jasmine said last week. My husband should want to connect with me, should have the desire to want to. If I feel that if Aries was matched with someone he was attracted to, there would be no situation with text messages, or when she came in, it would be no what up when she came in the door. There would be embrace, there would be some touching, there would be some kissing. There wouldn't be a negotiation about what type of touch, and okay, we're agreeing to hug, okay, we're hugging. No. This is prolonging the pain at this point, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. And this is where I feel like Math's agenda, like I said, just collides with what's really happening in real life with these couples. And this relationship needs to be done. This needs to be done for all of us. For all of us. Because to continue to have this part of Jasmine that's going to keep going, like, oh, there's hope, okay, because she has this, she's been ingrained to stick and stay. That's a part of her upbringing, her background, her parents. She's seen that's what she's going to do. And this is in a situation where she needs to leave because he's not there. Your husband's not texting you. He has to put a reminder in his phone at 2 o'clock. You're going to get a, how you doing today? It's still going to be not coming from a genuine place. It doesn't matter what time it comes. It's not going to be from a genuine place. So you let me know. You let me know what you're thinking and feeling for these couples as we are drawing much nigher to decision day. Whew. If you have stuck around for this long, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, be cool, be calm, be centered.